There are many ways to factor trinomials into two binomials. In this video, I'm going to talk about the AC method, or another word for that would be the grouping method. Before we go into the factoring, let's remind ourselves how to use distribution when we are multiplying binomials. Many of us are used to doing the arrows here. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you how that is expanded out just a little bit further. So that is my x in the first binomial times the x minus 3. And then if I do the 4 like this, that's a 4 times x minus 3. Now, the reason I'm showing that to you is because later on when we're factoring, you're going to see something that looks like this. And I want you to notice that x minus 3 shows up twice in this line, even though it's only shown up once in the initial expression. All right, and, well, let's keep on moving here. X times x is x squared, and then x times negative 3 is negative 3x, plus 4x minus 12. You're also going to see something that looks like this later on when we're doing factoring. And then finally, the last thing we have to do is we have to take this and we have to combine like terms to get an x squared plus x minus 12. All right, now what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to start with a trinomial and we're going to do it kind of the opposite way and get back to two binomials. So think of factoring as being the opposite of multiplying. Let's have some fun. Pause the video for a minute and see if you can figure out what would be the two binomials that would multiply to equal x squared plus 10x plus 24. Then later on in this video, I'll actually give you the answer. Since this is going to be the AC method, I want you to know where the A and the C come from. Plus, we're going to talk about the B value. The A is always in front of your squared variable. It's the coefficient of, in this case, x squared. If I was using n or z, it'd be in front of n squared or z squared. Your b is the coefficient that's in front of just the plain old variable x. It would have the x would have an exponent of 1, but we don't really show that variable. I'm sorry, that exponent. And then finally, c is the constant. It's a number. It's not going to be a variable or anything. It's going to be numbers like 3, negative 4, or 12. Here are the first two steps of factoring a trinomial using the AC method. Step 1 is you're going to multiply the A times the C. That's where it got its name, AC method. And so I would do 5 times 8, and it would equal 40. And then I would find all the factors of 40 and find the pair that add up to 14, my B value. So multiply the A and the C, and then find the factors. So I'm going to do 40, and I'm going to say, okay, that's 1 and 40, 2, 20, not 3, 4, 10, yes, 5 and 8, not 6, not 7. Okay, I'm done. Which pair there would add up to 14? Well, if you said 4 and 10, you are correct. Now, from there, I'm not done, but I wanted you to see that part first as we get into this. Okay, here we go. You've seen this one. This is the one I had earlier that I had you try to figure out. Did you figure it out? Well, here we go. A times C. Well, what is my A value? It's a 1. In fact, the first few of these I'm going to do is going to be a 1 because these get a little bit easier when it's just a 1 there. And I'm going to do 1 times 24 is 24, and then figure out the factors of 24. 1, 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, 5, no, okay, I'm done. All right, and since that's a positive 24, they're all going to be either positive numbers or negative numbers. And so I want to find two numbers that would add up to 10. Do you see two numbers that add up to 10? Sure, 4 plus 6. And because this is a positive 10, I'm going to use the positive 4 and the positive 6. All right, next step. I'm going to rewrite the problem, x squared. I'm going to put the first term and the last term. But in the middle, I'm going to put the 4 and the 6 with x's. So 4x plus 6x. Have I changed the problem? No. If you were to combine like terms, the 4x plus the 6x, you would get back to the 10x. So I have not changed the problem. I've just changed the way it looks. All right, next step. This is the one that gets a little weird, so kind of follow along, write it down in your notes. After the second term, I'm going to literally split this polynomial in half. And I'm just going to look at the first term, the x squared plus 4x. And I'm going to ask myself, what is the greatest common factor? Well, what can I divide out of both the x and the 4x? Just an x. All right, so I'm going to pull the x out. I'll have an x left here, plus, and then it looks like these x's canceled out 4. All right, done with that one. Next half, whatever this sign is, I'm going to put a green here and draw an arrow. Whatever that sign is the sign you are going to put right here. Then, look at it, 6x plus 24. What is the greatest common factor? If you said 6, you are correct. So I'm going to pull a 6 out, and I'll have an x left over and a 4 left over. Now I want you to see something really kind of cool here. Do you notice that the two sets of parentheses are the exact same thing? Yeah. And so what I can do is I can take this number and this, put it in their own parenthesis, and then have the one that's already there. And I'm done, y'all. Bam. If you don't believe me, multiply it out and you'll get back to the original equation. Okay, here we go. A times C, my 1 times 45 is 45. Then I have a 1 and 45. I have a 2, 3 and 15. 4, 5 and 9, 6, 7, 8. Nope, that's it. Now, because this is a positive 45, they're either all going to be positive or they're all going to be negative. Well, if they're going to add up to be a negative 18, what do you think? Yeah, they're all going to have to be negative. That's all right. So which two of those, because you add them like normal, so which two are going to add up to 18? This right here, the negative 3 and the negative 15. So I'm going to do x squared. I'm going to do plus 45. And in the middle, I think I gave myself a lot of room here, I'm going to have a negative 3. Don't forget the x. The negative 15. Again, don't forget the x, because the negative 3x plus the negative 15x better equal the negative 18x. Then I'm going to split it in half. What can I pull out of x squared and negative 3x? Just an x. That's it. That's all they have in common. So I'm going to pull the x out. And that gives me an x left over, and it looks like a negative 3. And then again, this is very important. Right there, what's that sign? It's a negative sign, so I've got to put a negative here. That's important. And so then what can I pull out of both 15 and 45? 15. Yeah. But I'm literally pulling out a negative 15. Once I have that negative, it has to be negative 15. So let me write that down here, write that down here. And these cancel out, and I have an x left over. Now check this out. A positive 45 divided by a negative 15 is a negative 3. Well, that's good, because our two binomials are the same. And actually, if your two binomials at this point are not the same, you've done something wrong. All right, finally, let's take the guys on the outside, give them their own binomial, or their own set of parentheses. And then we'll keep this guy, and we are done. Okay. How about this one? If you want to try it on your own, go for it. One of the things that's going to make it a little bit more interesting is the fact that when I do 1 times negative 24, and that is, we do count that as a negative 24, we get a negative 24. Now, what do you know about a product? When you multiply two numbers and you get a negative number, what do you know about those two numbers? Well, one of them has to be negative and one of them has to be positive. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write them all before I put the negative sign. So 3, 8, 4, 6, 5. No, we're done. And I'm just going to make these negative. Now, you could sit here and you can look for the right answer here if it's there, or you can continue on and rewrite these numbers and make these negative. That way you have all the different pairs of numbers that will multiply to be negative 24. So what I need to do is I need to find something that is a positive 5x. Well, remember when you're adding, because we're going to be adding, when you add a positive and negative number, you're actually finding the difference between the two numbers. It kind of feels like subtracting. But for it to be a positive 5x, the bigger number has to be positive. And so I'm going to do that. That means these couldn't work because the smaller number is the positive one. And so as you look at these right here, you notice that, woohoo, those two work right there. So I'm going to go ahead and write my x squared. I'm going to write my negative 24. And then I'm going to go ahead and do, let's see, negative 3. Don't forget the x. And then positive 8. Again, don't forget the x. Check to make sure those two, negative 3 plus 8 equals positive 5. They do. Lots of questions I have on this one when people do this. They ask, do we have to put the negative 1 first? No. You could have done 8x and then the negative 3x. Do we always have to put the small one in front? No. It doesn't matter which order you do. What matters is that they equal that middle term in the original expression. All right, let's go ahead and do this. I do have a little bit of advice. If I have one negative, one positive, I always put the negative one first. That way I don't have to deal with a negative being right here. All right, let's go erase that and get it out of the way. So what can I pull out of an x squared and a 3x? Well, an x. And what's left over? An x minus 3. And then here I'm going to put the plus sign. What can I pull out of an 8x and a negative 24? An 8. And then if I do that, I'm going to get an x and I'm going to get a negative 3, which is good because those two binomials are identical there in the parentheses. Last but not least, I'm going to take these two and put them in their own set of parentheses. And I am done. Not too hard. All right. This was very close to the one we just did. Go ahead and try it on your own. All right. A times C, 1 times negative 64 is a negative 64. So we have one of those situations going on just like the last one. And just like the last one, I'm going to go ahead and just write these down. No, 3 doesn't go in there. 4 goes in there 16 times. All right, 5, 6 goes in there. No, 7, 8. There you go. I believe that's it. But because it's negative, I'm going to make all these negative. And then again, I could sit there and I could rewrite them and make the others negative. Now, this time, I really didn't need to do that because as I look at this and I'm trying to get them to add up to 30x, since 30x is positive, my bigger number has to be positive. And so that would be the first set, not the second set. So as I'm looking through here, what two numbers, when I add them together, are going to give me 30? Bam, right here. Negative 2 plus a positive 32. So I'm going to do x squared, I'm going to do negative 64, and then I'm going to do a negative 2x and a positive 32x. I'm going to split this. Let's see. In the first one, I just have an x that they have in common. And I'm going to put the plus, and actually 32 is half of 64, so 32 goes into both of those. 32. And, you know, I'll show you this just in case you need that again, alrighty? 32 and that, out comes an x, and then negative 64 divided by 32 is just a negative 2. All right, great. Last thing I'm going to do is put the outside guys in their own set of parentheses, and I am done. All right, let's step it up a notch. And if you need to, pause the video and go practice factoring binomials where the a value is 1, and then come back. The deal is, this is done exactly the same way, it's just slightly bigger numbers at times. We're gonna go ahead and multiply our a value times our c value, so 5 times 8 is 40. And then I'm gonna do the same thing, find my factors. 2 times 20, 4 times 10, 5 times 8. And they either have to all be positive or all be negative, but since they are trying to get to positive 14, they're going to stay positive. So what two pairs add up to 14? Well, that's easy, 4 and 10. I'm going to do 5x squared, then I'm going to do 4x, and I'm going to do 10x, and then I'm going to do the 8. So basically that 4x plus 10x should equal the 14x. And everything is done exactly the same way we did before. I'm going to factor out. I'm going to split it in half. Factor something out of the first half. So that one, all I can pull out is an x. And I'll have a 5x left plus a 4. Here, I'm going to put the plus sign. And it looks like I can pull a 2 out. And that'll leave a 5x plus 4. That's good because those two have to be the same. Finally, put those two in their own set of parentheses. And I'm done. Again, if you do this and you question your answer, multiply them back out and see if you get to the 5x squared plus 14x plus 8. I would suggest on these last three that you pause the video for each one of them and try it on your own and then see how much you actually know and what parts you need to tweak to get the right answer. Or maybe you'll get the right answer the first time. All right, here we go. 7 times 12 is basically what I'm doing. I'm going to get an 84. So that's 1 and 84, 2 and 42, 3 and, let's see, 28, 4 and 21, not a 5, 6 though, yes, 6 and a 14, 7 and 12, 8, no, 9, no, 10, no, 11, no. Okay, I'm done. All right, so it is a positive 84 because positive 7 times positive 12 gives me a positive 84. But I am looking for two numbers that when you add them are going to be negative 20. So basically all these have to be negative. Okay, so what two numbers, I mean, this is okay because when you add two negatives, you add like normal, you just keep the negative sign. So what two numbers, when I add them together, are going to give me a negative 20? Wow, what about right there? All right, negative 6 and negative 14. So I'm going to go ahead and do my 7x squared. Then I'll do a negative 6x. I'll do a negative 14x. And a plus 12. And then again, the only part that changed was right here. And that should equal the negative 20 that is in the original problem. Alrighty, split it in half, always. What can I pull out of a 7x squared and a 6x? I had just an x. That leaves me with a 7x minus 6. And then because that's a negative, I have to put negative. This one's easy. A 14 and 12, the only thing I can pull out is a 2. So that would leave me. Now remember, I'm dividing them by negative 2. Just if you have to do it, put that little division sign and show yourself. And so that leaves me with a 7x. And then a positive 12 divided by a negative 2 is a negative 6. Which is good because that has to match the other binomial. All right, take the two guys on the outside, put them together. And then this one, and you are done. Is that what you got when you did it by yourself? All right, here we go. My A times my C. 3 times negative 16 gives me a negative 48. That's important to know, negative 48. I'm going to do 148, 2, 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12, 5, 6, and 8. All right, I'm done. But again, negative, 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 negative. And I could sit here and I could rewrite them all and copy that, ... But I'm already knowing that if this is going to be a positive 22, my bigger out of the two numbers must be the positive number. So these wouldn't work anyway. One of these days, those will work when you have a negative sign in front of your B value. All right, so what two numbers, when I put them together, equal 22? Now remember, when one's positive, one is negative, you're actually finding the difference. Well, if you saw this, you are correct. If I put a little plus sign there. All right. 3x squared minus 2x plus 24x minus a 16. Again, I've done the first term and the last term, and I'm just replacing the middle term. Split them in half. Bam. All right. Again, all I can pull out is an x. That doesn't always happen. In fact, I think in the next one it won't. Let's see. I have a 3x left minus 2. Here plus, what can I pull out of a 24 and a 16? Well, here's a clue. If you are struggling with that, go back to this one And it's going to have a 2 there. 2 times what is going to give you that 16? An 8. All right, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to be pulling out an 8. And if I do, 24x divided by 8 is a 3x, and a negative 16 divided by 8 is a negative 2. All right. Last but not least, let's take those outside guys, put them inside their own parentheses, and we are done. Okay, here we go. Last one. It looks so much smaller than all the rest. 2 times 3, 2 times negative 3 is a negative 6. And so I'll have 1 and 6, 2 and 3. But because it's negative, they have to have 1 is negative, 1 is positive. And then I can rewrite them where I have a 1 and a negative 6 and a 2 and a negative 3. And I'm looking for a pair that when I put them together, they're going to add up to be negative 5. Ooh, negative. That means now that my bigger number needs to be negative. So these aren't going to work, but the bottom ones are. So which two, when I put it together, are going to equal a negative 5? Well, it's this one right here. A positive 1 plus a negative 6. So I'm going to write this 2x squared. I'm going to follow my own advice. I'm going to put the negative 1 first, negative 6x. I am going to put a 1 in front of the x here, and I'll show you why in just a bit. All right. And again, my first and my last term are the same. Split it in half. Right here. Let's look at the first one. Oh, finally, more than just an x. It looks like I can pull out a 2 and an x out of those two terms. That's going to leave me with an x minus a 3. And put the plus here. But I want you to notice something. There is no number bigger than 1 that can be pulled out of those. And that's fine. I'm going to just put the 1 there. And then have the x minus 3. Because 1x divided by 1 is an x. And negative 3 divided by 1 is a negative 3. Alrighty. But the reason I have that 1 there is because now I can put these two together to make one of the binomials. And then I have that. All right, there you go. I think you're ready to do almost every trinomial. Go have some fun.